If you think about Nashville, you automatically think about country music. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be diving into and giving you a little bit of history and information about the Grand Ole Opry. Whether you've been to Nashville before or maybe you're coming for a visit, the Grand Ole Opry is a Nashville staple. There's a lot of things that people don't know about it, so that's what I'm going to be covering in today's video. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin and I am a local Nashville real estate agent, and I specialize in helping savvy sellers who want to sell right and sell smart, as well as helping out-of-staters looking to relocate to the Middle Tennessee area. Okay, so I know that if you maybe haven't been to the Nashville area before, a lot of times people can actually think that the Grand Ole Opry is located in the heart of downtown Nashville, and that's actually not the case. So the Grand Ole Opry is actually going to be located out east. It's going to be off of Briley Parkway. This is where the Grand Ole Opry House is, along with the Opry Hills Mall and Gaylord Opryland Hotel. We're going to be diving into why this is actually located outside the city. Just know it is located about 15 to 20 minutes outside of downtown Nashville. And if you're curious as to why it may be removed from the heart of the city, we're actually going to be diving into that next. Okay, so for those that actually don't know, the Grand Ole Opry, it's not just a building. Grand Ole Opry is actually a radio show that started back in 1924. And it did bounce around to a couple of locations as it grew in size and it took on an audience. But one of the places that's kind of synonymous with the Grand Ole Opry is the Ryman Auditorium, because back in 1943, that's actually when the Grand Ole Opry started being hosted at the Ryman, which is that historic church in the heart of downtown Nashville. It's actually called the Mother Church of Country Music, and this is part of the reason why. So it was located at the Ryman, but here's the thing. The Ryman Auditorium at that time did not have air conditioning. And if you know anything about the South and the hot summers that we're dealing with, you gotta have air conditioning. We cannot live without our air conditioning. So the parent company of the Grand Ole Opry, they did decide that they needed a larger building with air conditioning and they wanted more parking. So they actually started looking at areas a little bit outside of Nashville, trying to find the next perfect spot, which is when they settled on that area that's going to be out to the east of Nashville. If you are staying in downtown Nashville, you actually take I-40 East to Briley Parkway, go north a couple miles, and that's where the Grand Ole Opry House is now. But when they actually decided to move it out there, it wasn't just gonna be the Grand Ole Opry House. They actually had plans for more. So they actually also had plans, and they ended up building the Opryland Hotel, which is still there today. And then they also built Opryland USA, which was a theme park. And it was a local favorite. People absolutely loved it. However, they were really capped by the space that they were in. They couldn't really expand. In order to get new rides, they had to get rid of old rides. And so they really became limited in what they could do. So they ended up back in 1997 closing down Opryland USA, tearing it down, and then that's when they built the Opry Mills Outlet Mall, which is still there today. The Opry Mills Mall has like 200 plus outlets, including a huge Bass Pro Shop. It has Saks Fifth Avenue off 5th. It has over 200 stores, obviously places to eat as well, and a movie theater. So it's right there next to the Grand Ole Opry House. And so a couple of neat things about the Grand Ole Opry House. So maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but because the Ryman was so ingrained into what the Grand Ole Opry was, when they decided to move locations, they still wanted to bring a piece of the Ryman with them. So they actually cut a 6-foot circle from the Ryman Auditorium stage, and they took that and they put it into the stage at the Grand Ole Opry. So if you've ever heard an artist talk about getting to step into the circle, that's what they're talking about. It is a huge honor. The Grand Ole Opry does not let just any artist play on stage. It is a huge honor to be invited to do so, and even more of an honor when you get invited to actually be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. Oh, and speaking of the circle, so you may or may not know this, but Nashville experienced a historic flood in 2010, and the Opry was actually underwater. The main floor was underwater, the stage, the backstage areas, all covered with water. And so when that happened, of course, they had to go back in, they had to build a new stage, they had to redo seating, all of it. However, because that circle from the Ryman was so important to the Grand Ole Opry, they actually were able to save it and restore it. And then when they built the new stage, they were able to put that circle back into it. So all is well, they're still able to carry on the tradition, but that circle has been through a lot. So when you go to the Opry, there is separate Grand Ole Opry parking. However, because it's right there next to the mall, sometimes you can get parking at the mall, which is going to be close to the entrance of the Grand Ole Opry house, and that's for free. So if you can get there early enough and get a spot, that is one way to get parking a little bit more affordable. Now, the Grand Ole Opry, it's a really cool experience. Now, don't expect there to be like regular auditorium seating where everyone has an individual seat. It's going to be church pews essentially, but with really comfortable cushions on them, because those wooden church pews can get hard on the back after a while. But that's still keeping in theme with the Ryman Auditorium. And so just know they definitely have cushions on them now, but it is going to be pew seating versus individual seating. There's also concession stands there. You can get alcoholic or non-alcoholic drinks, whatever floats your boat. But getting to go to the Grand Ole Opry is really fun. Because it is a radio show, you do have that radio announcer right there on stage. He introduces every act. This Grand Ole Opry, it is still aired on radio. And so in between each act, you'll have a little bit of a break. The curtain will come down. You typically have about 6 artists that play in a night. They typically play 3 to 4 songs, and then they close the curtains and get ready for the next artist. Ticket prices can vary depending on who's playing. So if a superstar like Carrie Underwood's playing, tickets can be a little bit more expensive, but they can generally range somewhere between $35 and up. Again, if it's more well-known artists, prices can start more around $50 and go up. But the Opry is really awesome because it's not just going to one artist show. You get to experience, like I said, several others, which is a really fun opportunity. And plus, the Grand Ole Opry is just such a historic staple in Nashville. It's a part of the fabric of who Nashville is. And so whether you're thinking about moving here or whether you're coming for a trip, I would definitely put the Grand Ole Opry on your list. Even if you don't know the artist, it's still a really cool experience to get to go and to feel the history of what you are a part of. So that's kind of the Grand Ole Opry in a nutshell. It's a really awesome experience. So I would encourage anyone, even if you're coming for what I call a recon trip, where you're trying to figure out what areas you would want to live in, the Grand Ole Opry is definitely a really fun thing that if you're able to get tickets, just go and experience it, because it's something that's really unique to Nashville. Now, I have mentioned, like I said, the Opry Mills Mall and the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. We're gonna be diving into those and what to know about them a little bit more next week. But if you are thinking about making a move here, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All my contact information is below. Email is generally the best way to initially reach out so we can set a time to talk. Now, maybe you're not ready to have those conversations yet, but you're curious about learning more about the Nashville area and what a potential move here looks like. Please don't hesitate to grab my free Nashville relocation guide. It's down below. And then when you're ready to start the conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, my name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.